just finished talking about morality and how in an atheistic worldview, morality is relative, it's subjective, and it's mutually incompatible with the atheistic worldview. Moral absolutes are mutually incompatible. But God, being the designer of the system alone, has the right to define the rules for that system, and those rules form the definition for what we call holiness or righteousness. So that's where we get those terms from. The character and nature of God revealed equals whatever holiness and righteousness means. So everything that rebels against those standards are sinful or rebellious. Alright, so we just finished talking about that in the last video. Today we're going to be talking about purpose. So this God, who we have established to be God based on the first four evidences, also has the right to determine the purpose for those things that he creates. Now this isn't so much as an evidence, but it is a concept that reveals the authority of the designer. And that designer gets to define the purpose for which we were created. And so we, as created human beings, the created, have a purpose. In an atheistic worldview, purpose ultimately is meaningless in a cosmic sense, in an ultimate sense. It's meaningless. We make up our own purpose, but it's subjective. It's a subjective purpose, and in an ultimate sense is meaningless. But we create our own. That's possible in an atheistic worldview. But in a theistic worldview, there is an ultimate purpose. There is an ultimate purpose. And appealing to the first four videos, we believe that it's scientifically reasonable to come to the conclusion that God really does have to exist. And it is also, we can come to the conclusion that it is unscientific to not believe in a God. And so based on that, we can then derive that God establishes our purpose. And so we as human beings should appeal and should conform ourselves to the purpose for which we were created. It's our responsibility to seek out who this God is and what was the purpose for our existence. And it's our responsibility to conform to that purpose. Now we have options. We understand that, yes, we've got free will. Our experience tells us that. Nature tells us that. We can run up to someone and punch them, or we can run up to someone and give them food if they're hungry. We have that free will, and nothing controls us. We have the freedom to make decisions, and so based on that freedom we can choose to rebel against this creator, or we can choose to submit to and conform to the will of the creator. We've been given those options, and I would argue that there is a standard of justice, and that justice is in alignment with the character and nature of God. And injustice is anything that is rebellious against the moral character of God. Everything that is good and righteous is in accordance with the character of God. And so there it is, purpose. But in an atheistic worldview, again, purpose is ultimately, in a cosmic sense, meaningless. But in the biblical worldview, it is meaningful. And so here we have one of the attributes of God. He is an eternally powerful, incomprehensibly intelligent, life-giving, purpose-defining, holy and righteous God. So he is purpose-defining as well. That's important. That is important as you seek out who this creator is. And in later videos, again, we're going to be talking about the evidence that Jesus Christ is this God. And it's very real evidence. It appeals back to the third video, I think, in the series, which is an eternal nature that is a quality that only God enjoys. So stay tuned for that. We're going to be talking about that later, that you can prove that Jesus is God, but that's not the purpose for these videos. The purpose for this video is to come to the conclusion, based on the evidence, that God is purpose-defining. He is a God of purpose and creates the purpose for human beings. And if we don't conform to that purpose, something is going to be missing in our lives, and there will be consequences for going against that purpose. As a software developer, if I create a computer program and some of the aspects, some of the things that I created don't conform to the purpose for which they were designed, I, as a software developer, often I call them bugs, and those bugs need to be removed. Likewise, in the medical world, if a person has a virus, that virus is something that is not conforming to the purpose for which it was created. It's there to rebel against the bodily system, and so doctors seek to remove and destroy viruses. Likewise, God created us as human beings in the world in which we live, and He created us for a purpose. If we don't conform to the purpose, then it's reasonable to conclude that He should at least at some point remove us. But the scriptures make it clear that God loves us, and so, but we'll be talking about that later. So the big idea is purpose. God is an eternally powerful, incomprehensibly intelligent, purpose-defining, holy and righteous, life-giving God. Stay tuned for the next piece of evidence.